This presentation is brought to you by the Beljanski Foundation. Over 50 years of research towards curing cancer the natural way.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Alex Lubarsky, and about 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. And when I first was diagnosed, I went the regular routes as everybody else. By that time, we spent about 10 years paying for a health insurance, my wife and I. And at this point, health insurance is $20,000 per year the average family spends. So if you count it up over 10 years, we spent $200,000 for really nothing. Waiting until I develop some kind of a chronic condition so then I can treat it through this $3.65 trillion system of indefinite disease management. So I took my insurance card, I called up a doctor and scheduled an appointment. They gave me an appointment a month in advance. Well, I wasn't in a hurry. I just had a little patch of dry skin above my ear. I really wasn't thinking anything of it. It just wouldn't go away for a long time. So I show up at the doctor's office about 15 minutes before my scheduled time, and I spent an hour waiting in the waiting room for the doctor. Finally, they escort me to the exam room, where I spent another 20 minutes waiting. There was a skeleton in the room and a bunch of posters of pictures with people that have advanced disease states of my condition. So I was, freaking out a little bit, not a lot. I'm not a kind of freaking out kind of guy. But still, I'm seeing this. I mean, is it going to get so bad? Is it going to evolve like that? So finally, the doctor walks in, very nice guy. He greets me, says, what seems to be the trouble? I said, well, here. He goes, takes a look, like for a second. He says, oh, you have psoriasis. I said, okay, psoriasis. So he gives me a cream, a steroid cream. And that's it. 2 minutes later, he was gone. He was out of the room. I take my cream. I take my prescription. I go home. I put on the cream, and the skin clears. 2 days, 3 days later, it expands. I put the cream on, it goes away. Then a little bit later, it expands. Like half my head is now covered with this psoriasis. Worse than that, like after a while, my joints began to hurt. And I couldn't close my hand, pick up a cup. I couldn't get out of a chair without pushing myself up. My hips were hurting so badly. So, it's just, the system is interesting. The system that we're all in is very interesting. That we're spending all of this money to support it. But the only thing it does is manage our diseases after they have developed. And what I learned is you cannot solve a problem in a system that profits from its existence. And that's what we have today. We have a system that profits from the management of our chronic conditions. So last year, I did a 42-day water-only fast. Do you know why? Because I tried everything else. So just to tell you, the arthritis part, I actually found a physician many years ago that helped me resolve the arthritis part within 3 months. The psoriasis part has been complex and has been very, very difficult to figure out what is the underlying cause of that. So I've tried everything that I'm going to introduce you to today. A lot of the things I'm going to introduce you to are brand new. We have DNA companies. We have different supplement companies. We have testing companies that look to figure out what's actually causing the damage to the gut lining. And I identified the thing that set you off many years ago in the direction of having some kind of a chronic condition. Because when you find out what the problem is, you have a much better chance of resolving it. Whether it's supplementation, detoxification, whether it's to stop eating some kind of a food that's causing the problem, whatever it is, once you know what is causing the problem, it's a lot easier to resolve it. So that's the thing. So I did a fast. My fast began on August 13th, Sunday at 6 p.m. And it was very abrupt. I just said, I tried everything else, and I was researching fasting for about a year prior. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start a fast. I did a couple of fasts back before, but this one is going to be the most intense that I've ever done. I told my wife, I said, Alina, I'm going to start a fast tonight, and I'm going to do 21 days, water only. She said, you know, she's used to my gimmicks, so she said, okay, good luck. And then about 10 days into it, I said, you know what? I'm going to extend it. I'm going to do a 35-day fast because, you know, since I'm already doing it, I might as well see what happens. And then I said, you know, I'll do 42 days because that's cool. Jesus did 40 and I did 42, so we're cool together. So I want to tell you a little bit about my experience and some of the things I learned. So the fast was water only. When I say water only, there was nothing else. There was no coffee, no supplements, no juices, no anything. And on top of that, I did it while I was producing one of these events. So I had a deadline for a magazine. I was like under all this stress. And it's not the best way to do it. If you're going to do a fast, there's a very intelligent way of doing it, whether you decide to do 21 days or 42 days or whatever it is. But fasting is such a powerful modality. And when I first stumbled onto it, actually one of my doctors a couple of years ago was talking about intermittent fasting. And although I've been doing this for this many years, I was like, intermittent fasting, I don't think I've ever done that. That's basically when you condense your consumption of food into just a few hours span. So let's say you start eating at 10 and you finish eating by 4, like that. So that's intermittent fasting. So you have all of this time for your body to regenerate and do its thing. So what I found was when I first started fasting, that the first 3 days are always the most difficult because that's when your body is using all the glucose that you have left in the body. It starts burning it up. But after about 3 days of water-only fasting, your body does something remarkable. It switches from burning sugar to actually burning fat. And as soon as that happened, I felt it. Because all of a sudden, I had this tremendous influx of energy. And I began to drop weight at about a pound and a half a day. Towards the end of my fast, I actually lost 50 pounds. I went down from 180 to 130. When my mother saw me on day 35, she actually started crying. So that's I started 181, went down to 132. That's what I look like. This is the first bite of a watermelon after 42 days of being on a water-only fast. So my mom wasn't happy with this whole idea, but she was happy that I survived. A couple of things about fasting. First of all, so you do within 3 days, you switch to burning fat, and then for the next 10 days, it's your mind. Your mind is going to just torture you because it's going to throw up pictures of the most delicious things you've ever had in your entire life, and it's going to do it consistently. So it's going to take a level of willpower and resolve to do this kind of thing. But you also discover within yourself this remarkable ability that, yes, you can do it. You'll also discover that the human body is just so magnificent and it can put up with so much abuse that 42 days of no food, no nutrition whatsoever, and you still, are alive. I think that's a miracle. A couple of things. First of all, you pee a lot. There's a lot of peeing happening. And I don't know exactly how you lose weight because you don't do the other thing at all for all that time. And you're dropping a pound and a half a day. So how is your body able to lose all of that weight without the other thing? I don't know the answer to that, but that's what happens. The sleep, I only needed a few hours sleep. I would wake up like 4 o'clock in the morning and I was ready to start my day. I had all of this energy. And the mistake I made, or the context that I put myself in, was not the best. Because really, when you're fasting, you're supposed to rest. The biggest consumer of energy within your body is digestion and the brain. Those two consume the most amount of energy. So when you stop eating, you have a release of energy. But if you use that energy to run, to exercise, to do all these things, the body cannot really use all of that energy to do its internal work. And once it starts doing its internal work, instead of digesting food constantly, it begins to digest all the things in your body that don't need to be there. The tumors, the bacteria that shouldn't be there, whatever it is, it starts to focus on itself and starts to repair and rebuild. So just like when you shut off a computer when it's not working, this is a very powerful way to reset the body and get it to do what needs to be done. These are some of the people that I followed for over a year, and I learned from them. One of them was Dr. Walter Longo. He's a PhD scientist in Italy. He wrote The Longevity Diet, discovered the new science behind stem cell activation and regeneration to slow aging, fight disease, and optimize weight. So he's an Italian physician who teaches fasting, and he actually came up with a supplement line and some foods he calls the fasting mimicking diet. To me, he's a PhD and I'm sure a very smart man. To me, after doing a 42-day fast, there's nothing that can compare to a water-only fast. Everything else is kind of, if you'll forgive me, watered down. If you're doing a fasting mimicking diet, it's a lighter version of, it's like a nuclear weapon versus a slingshot. I mean, it's just such a vast difference. I did fast before. I did a juice fast, 21 days. It did nothing for me. I did a fast where I was actually taking some supplements. I was drinking some shakes and different things like that from Metagenics. It didn't do anything for me. But when I did this water-only fast, it was the most transformational thing that I've ever tried as a modality. So that's Dr. Longo. Then Dr. Jason Fung. He's a Canadian doctor who works with people that have diabetes, I think. And he wrote a book called The Complete Guide to Fasting. Heal your body through intermittent, alternate day, and extended fasting. And he's a very interesting man. I've watched a bunch of his videos. I read some of his stuff. And I think he's very good about this. But they all, like all of these guys, Alan Goldhammer, he runs the True North Center in California. And all of them have some flexibility to the fasting process. Some of them say, coffee is okay. Some of them have a medical team on standby just in case, you're feeling woozy and they, you got to eat now. But the one I really resonated with was this crazy Lauren Lockman. He founded the True North Center, the Tanglewood Wellness Center in Costa Rica. And him I really liked. He's a little bit of a nut, but he's intense. And that's who I was really following when I started doing this program. So he fasts people for 21 days at minimum. What he says is that if you're fasting for 3 days and you do that 7 times, what you're doing is you get to the point where your body begins to consume muscle. But it consumes muscle for a very short period of time before it switches to consuming fat. And what you're doing is you get to the point where you're consuming muscle. You never get to the point where you're consuming fat, and then you stop. If you do that more than one time, you're actually consuming muscle. But once you do this extended fast, 21 days, 26 days is what it recommends just to have a little, cushion there. But 26 days at minimum. He fasted people for over 50 days. I think the world record for a fast, not in his center, but like in general, was a man who did like 368 days of water fasting. He was very heavy, and he lived on his resources. You know. So I did his fast. Really, I was watching a lot of the stuff he was talking about, and I really liked him. So here's this center in Costa Rica. People go there, and they stay at the center to fast. And that is the best way to fast if you're going to do it. In a center that actually watches you, they test your blood, they make sure that you're okay, they kind of encourage you. With me, on day 35, because my wife thought I was only going to do 21 days, she planned dinners. We had the Rosh Hashanah, the first night and the second night. First night we had family over. So they had this, my wife made this incredible spread on the table. And the second night we had a friend's dinner. The same thing, a big spread of food. And everybody, when they saw me, they were like, oh my God, you got to eat, Alex, please, you got to eat. So it's a rough environment. First, you scare people. And second of all, you have all this food in front of you and it's crazy. So that wasn't the best thing. And then, my biggest scare during this whole process was a couple of times. First of all, I got up at night and I'd walk to the bathroom and I just got so dizzy one time and I stumbled and I frightened my wife. I didn't fall, but I almost kind of did. So she jumped out of bed. She was like, you're okay? I'm fine. And then like around day 38, it was Yom Kippur, the Jewish day of fasting. So I was already fasting. That was hard. But then my wife goes, listen, we got to go to the synagogue to pray because, we got to do that. I'm a sinner, it seems. So anyway, I said, okay, we got to walk. It's 15 minutes. By then, I'm like shuffling my feet. I can barely move. She goes, we'll walk slow. I said, okay, fine. So we started walking. And I walk in there, and all of a sudden she goes, we're going to be late. We got to move a little faster. So I'm trying, I'm moving, I'm getting there. Finally, I get there, and I'm standing, they're doing the prayers. And all of a sudden, my eyesight gets fuzzy. And I break into the sweat. I sweat through my shirt, my jacket, and my tie. It was so bad. It was intense. So I said, you know what, I need to sit down. So I sat down. I said, Lord, if you let me get through this, I'll go home and I'll eat. But then I recovered. I got home. I'm like, Lord, 4 more days. Is that cool? So I did 42 days. And it was a tremendously awesome experience. I learned a lot. What I learned is we can and should take total control of our body. We need and should learn from people that are actually helping us figure out the underlying cause of our chronic issue. We need and must transform the way the system of healthcare is done in the United States of America because we are being experimented on. We are being taken advantage of. And those people that figured out how to profit from our sickness and disease are benefiting and we are losing. And it's time for us, ladies and gentlemen, to transform that. And the way we transform that is we take responsibility for our own healing into our own hands, and we start working with the kind of doctors that actually become our partner to help us resolve the underlying cause of the health problem permanently and forever. Thank you so much. Thank you.